Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh. Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Well, good day to everyone. Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for Jim. He will join us a little later from the beautiful beaches of San Juan, Puerto Rico. So he will be by, I'm saying around 10 o'clock. But got a good show here for you today. Got Greg Rakestraw coming on here in a bit from the Colts Radio Network, as well as Pacer beat writer Dustin Dopirak. And then, of course, I'm going to dive in a little bit into the Hoosier basketball and their big come-from-behind win against the Serbian Mega Superbet team that they will play again today at 11, the final game on their trip. And I'm sure Jim will give us a breakdown of all things there with that game coming up today. And we'll jump into some football as the Hoosiers scrimmage this past Saturday, wrapping up their second week. We are not too far from kickoff versus Old Dominion here. We'll try to give you some things on Indiana football, basketball, so strap in. We'll be after it today. And like I said, Jim Coyle will join us a little later on. And I hope everybody had a nice weekend and we can get the work week kicked off on a positive start today. But biggest thing here before we bring Greg in, just some quick Indiana football news. Lewis Moore, safety, who played for Indiana for 3 years under Tom Allen, transferred to Ole Miss before returning via the portal, is now suing the NCAA for reinstatement and his 5th year of eligibility. Now, what had happened was he had gone to junior college for a couple of years. And when the Pavia kid down at Vanderbilt got that award of an additional year of eligibility, he felt, and Indiana felt, that kind of was a blanket ruling by that federal judge. However, the NCAA didn't see it that way, and they denied his initial request. So Lewis Moore's status for Indiana right now is a little bit in limbo. And would it be a big hit? I don't, to me, a little bit, because he's a pretty good player and he has 3 years under his belt, and he was an all Big Ten kid. So that one we'll have to keep an eye on as they work through that process with the NCAA and now the courts. So I believe something will be coming about that here in a couple days in terms of what they get from the federal courts, because I think they're going for at least an injunction to allow him to go ahead and play. But it's a touchy situation because the NCAA, I believe, has now said if you play someone they've denied eligibility, and even though there is a injunction in place, after that ruling is made, they could come back and forfeit the games that he played in. So we'll see what happens on that end. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about the Hoosiers down the road here, football-wise, some basketball as well. But first, let's get Mr. Greg Rakestraw in here to talk a little bit of the Colts. And we may sneak a little bit of soccer in there just for the sake of a new rivalry that may be budding in the early ground, that seed that's been planted between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. There's some little minor league history there, so we may sneak a little bit of soccer in.
Can I jump in and tell you why that won't be the case?
Why?
They're not in the same league.
Well, that's what the question I had, because the way I understood it, they were going to be in the same league.
No. So what it is so what Shannon's referring to, and good morning, by the way.
Good morning. Yes.
Fort Wayne FC, that's been playing at an amateur level for the last handful of years, is going to a fully professional level next year in 2026. They will be playing in USL League One, which is the league below the Indy 11. Now,
got you.
There is a competition that Indy has been a part of this year called the Jägermeister Cup, which actually combines the two leagues. So there is a chance they could play one time next season, but for the most part, they are in different leagues. So yes, it would be great to recreate the Fuel and Comets or the Ice and Comets or whatever Indianapolis iteration against the legendary Fort Wayne Comets.
Yeah. Well,
but
I don't know where I got
on a regular basis.
I don't know where I got that from, that they were gonna be in the same league, and maybe I read into it too much. Just looking at some of the things that have been posted here in the Fort Wayne media market, and maybe that's what they were referring to mostly, was that potential exhibitional type of matchup.
Yeah.
But I thought for sure they were in the same league with that. But I digress. See, that's how much of soccer I know. I stay away from things that I don't.
I'm glad you brought it up.
But I thought that was going to be a legitimate. Hey, we're going to have rivalries in hockey, now soccer. I mean, holy cow!
So to give the folks that might be listening or watching from the Fort Wayne area, first of all, it's wonderful that they are building a team.
They're going to have a new stadium too. It's going to be
correct. Sure. And obviously having Scott there and having Justin there behind the scenes, Scott's pro, Justin Cohn, obviously DeMarcus Beasley attached to it. It's a wonderful thing. The league that Fort Wayne is jumping into, and I don't know how many teams they'll have next year. They have 14 teams this season.
Yeah, that's a pretty big.
The issue that league has dealt with as being so geographically spread out. Seemingly they are figuring that part out. The closest team to them now would be Madison, Wisconsin. For example, teams in Detroit and Indianapolis, those two played each other this weekend. They're in the championship. So Fort Wayne will be in League One. There's teams in Omaha as well. There's teams on the West Coast. There's teams on the East Coast. And so it is a level where you can pay the players a little bit less, where you can have a little bit of a smaller stadium than the league that the Indy 11 plays in. Obviously, everybody's goal is to grow and get bigger and play in terms of the top flight league as possible. But for folks in Fort Wayne, go support your new professional team. Obviously, there has been tremendous support for, the Comets for generations. And now the Tin Caps are one of the best ballparks in minor league baseball for the last 15, 20 years. And so hopefully that same sort of love is shared on the soccer team.
Well, they've had, some good support already. Building a brand new stadium that will be open for next year. That's going to be, again, right up there with the Tin Caps and things like that, because of the people that are involved will do it in a first-class way. But here you broke all my mojo this morning when you informed me. But hey, those things happen. I overread into it, and I got the exhibitional aspect a little bit
all good
backwards. But anyway, let's talk Indianapolis Colts, because that was a thing that was on everybody's mind this past weekend. Down in Baltimore, unfortunately, they took a loss in the preseason, but again, that's not the main focus. Sure, you want to win, but it's more about evaluation than anything, and getting your team football ready, I guess you could say. That was with Richardson, that whole thing is kind of all of a sudden taken on a story of its own. And you got people breaking down pass protection and, he should have done this or he should have done that. And, first of all, you do not know the play calling system for the Colts. There's all those assumptions and everything like that. But the good thing is, yes, he had a dislocated finger, right? His thinky finger. But he was back in practice the other day throwing a little bit, I believe. But do you know his extent of that injury, or is it just one of those things that unfortunately popped back in and, things are going to be on point for him heading forward?
The injury is so bad that he has fully practiced the last 2 days, Shannon. He's going to be just fine. So literally it popped back into place without much of a problem. It looked gruesome. But again, you've played the sport at a far better level than I have. Shake a football player's hands after his career is over. Sometimes you have 10 fingers pointing in 10 different directions, and that includes the quarterback position as well. So that is something that every lineman, every receiver, every quarterback has gone through. And obviously, you see thumb injuries all the time where guys get hit on follow-throughs, or whether it's hitting an offensive lineman's helmet, defensive lineman's helmet, et cetera. It happens. Thankfully, it popped right back into place. So he had, I wouldn't say a full splint, but a pretty good wrap from, say, here to the base of his hand when they practiced on Saturday. That became tape basically just on his bottom two fingers yesterday. They'll practice at 4 o'clock today. We'll see if there's anything there. By all accounts, he's fine. Shane Steichen even said that basically while Jones will get to start on Saturday against the Packers, Richardson will play the quarter and a half that he was supposed to. It was supposed to be Anthony plays a quarter and a half against the Ravens, and then Jones gets 2 series. Now they will flip that, but Jones will get to start. He also said yesterday that the starters will play through the first quarter. So Richardson will, at least in theory, get a series, maybe 2, in terms of the ones, where he got really just the starting center and right guard is the ones that play with him on Thursday night, because those are the second-year guys, and Matt Gonzalez, who was a third-round pick out of Pittsburgh last year, and Tanner Bordellini, who was a fourth-round pick out of Wisconsin the year prior. Other than that, Richardson was the only other starter that played against the Baltimore Ravens. So Colts may have dodged a bullet there. And I will tell you, in terms of blitz pickup and pass scheme, I can tell you that was Anthony's read to make.
It was. I mean, I wasn't going to jump in and
it was.
Well. Yeah.
So it was. He said it after the game. Shane said it after the game. And because those two guys said it, I will share with you. Obviously, I'm in the booth with Joe Wrights in Baltimore, and Charles Arbuckle is 3 booths down from us. And as the three of us are all kind of getting together after the game, it's basically, I kind of look at them and said, all right. They're like, yeah, that's on Anthony. I said, okay. And so both the tight end and running back are getting out into the flat in terms of trying to get into the route, which means Anthony's got to read that, and he didn't. And so that was the far bigger issue than his finger, was the fact that he didn't see that, and not even on his blind side. He did not see that, looking towards his right.
Yeah, and I know that in protection and things like that, he had 2 options, whether to throw it hot, which I'm sure they have something built in with the back out, or he needed to switch his protection to slide to his right where the pressure came from to protect himself to be able to throw the ball. But those things happen. Those are always on the quarterback once the play's called and he's behind the line of scrimmage, because everything before that's just an assumption of what they may do. And therefore, it's a good lesson, hey, he won't make that mistake again.
You hope not.
Not in the NFL.
Right.
Not in the NFL, baby, because that is he would look like a big old T-bone steak back there for Baltimore. But Daniel Jones all of a sudden gets thrust into the equation in a game that he wasn't anticipating to play until later on. He actually was, he did pretty good. I mean, he was 10 of 21, had 144 yards. Kind of speak to his performance that, from your viewpoint and those that are around you, what they thought of his performance there in Baltimore.
I would say good, not great. And frankly, I thought that a lot of it was kind of drops, to be honest with you. Anthony Gould had a couple of drops. Adonai Mitchell had a drop. If you're looking for, guys that really stood out from Thursday night, thought it was the first 2 draft picks. Tyler Warren looked the part, 3 catches for 40 yards and kind of in a variety of routes and a variety of roles. And obviously, like I mentioned, he was the other starter that played. And that has been typical for, I think, most NFL teams. If you're going to sit your starters, okay, fine, play the rookies so that those guys get some experience. For example, Baltimore Ravens returned 10 defensive starters from last year's team. Who's the one starter that played? The kid from Georgia, their first-round pick, and Malachi Starks, who's going to be one of their starting safeties this coming year. So they ran a lot of stuff to get Tyler some looks and then get him out of the game. I thought he was really good. I thought JT Tuimoloau was tremendous, in terms of getting pressure and very similar to Richardson. He kind of got dinged at the very end of the game. And basically, if it's a regular season game, he goes back in. Because it's a preseason game, he doesn't.
Right.
He's practiced the last couple of days. He's fine. In the non-rookie division, I thought Ashton Doolin looked really good. And Ashton is a bit of a known commodity, even though last year he kind of, after missing all of 23 due to a knee injury, he kind of reverted to being pretty much a special teams only player. He had 2 catches last year. He had 3 catches for 54 yards. Now, he's probably the 5th or 6th receiver on the Colts, but he looked like a guy I'm like, hey, let's see if we can maybe work in a few plays for him as well. And again, he's one of the better special teams players in the league. So those are the guys that popped to me. I thought the quarterback play was good, not great. You're right. Jones was prepared for a couple of series. He wasn't prepared for a quarter and a half. And so it's a good fire drill for him in case he is the backup and being ready at a moment's notice. But I would say big picture, Shannon, this is still a quarterback position that is in flux. I really don't think this has been decided yet.
You know what they say, if you have 2, you have none. Well, look,
they will pick one, but right now it's still up for grabs.
Yeah. Well, look at it this way. And I think this is where the Colts were very smart with this scenario with Anthony and, all what transpired last year in his rookie season and, tapping out and things that, outwardly look bad. They brought somebody in to compete with him that's played pretty decently in the NFL. I know they had who they had a year ago, but Daniel's in that same in that age group where the competition's going to be pretty fierce, for a quarterback that's got NFL playing experience most recently, going up against a very talented kid that, if he could put it together, would be pretty darn good. His problem is accuracy and consistency.
Sure. And honestly, Shannon, the accuracy has been better.
Yeah.
In terms of training camp, there's still plays where you'll go, no, that's not the read. I think the reads have been better. For Anthony, it is accuracy and processing. That where does the ball need to go here? That's what they're dealing with. And from an accuracy standpoint, it was obviously a much larger sample size in year 2, because he basically played 3 3/4 games in year number 1.
Right.
His completion percentage was just south of 60, which is not great, but it looks great in comparison to 48% in year number 2. And that obviously was a massive problem. And that is a do not pass go number. That is you will not be playing in the National Football League on a regular basis. Those were guys' completion percentages in 1978. The game is played a little bit different now. And so I have said this throughout the course of this competition. If it is a tie, it's going to go to the incumbent. It's going to be Anthony Richardson.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if one of these 2 guys have separated themselves just yet.
Well, yeah, it's still early on, and, camp is where the competition happens. Now, the fans and everyone doesn't really get to see the practice sessions other than what they get and things like that. So you never know what that evaluation is happening on those days. You see the games, and so it's hard to get an impression off of one game. But we'll find out as sooner than later. But I do think what I was referencing there with the competition, I think it's forced Anthony in a more being prepared, studying, hitting the film room, things of that nature, that he can, finally get into that pro mentality of what it takes to play in the NFL. It's not just trotting on the field because you're the best athlete out there.
Right.
And it's now you're up against guys that are as good as, or if not better than you on the field every week. And if you do not prepare for it, it's going to look bad. I mean, the bottom line, it's going to look bad. And I think that's the one thing that bringing in another guy like that with Jones helps that mentality of I better prepare, I better get myself right. And I do think he's done that for the most part. We'll see as we go along here. I know there was a question in the chat about Kenny Moore's injury, but talking about injuries now, I mean, can the Colts ever get away from the IR bandwagon? Because they go through this every year. And right now, they're beat up in the secondary.
Correct. And that's every team. I mean, you're playing roulette in training camp. It's a matter of time. And so yesterday, Kenny Moore got dinged in practice. Alec Pierce got dinged in practice. And frankly, no word in terms of severity. My guess would be is that we would know a little bit more today. After today, the everybody's off on Tuesday. No official practice on Wednesday, so we won't have a chance to speak to Shane or anybody else until Thursday after today. So we'll kind of know a little bit more. Nick Cross has missed back-to-back days of practice. That's a little concerning. Kwity Paye missed yesterday's practice. But to your point, Jalen Jones suffered a pretty significant hamstring injury early in camp. Juju Brents can't catch a break from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, kid.
He has missed some time. And so, yes, the Colts obviously invested in cornerback in Shavarius Ward. Thankfully, he's fine. I'm not sure you're playing him in the preseason to make sure he stays healthy. But really, you had kind of 6 corners that had either, NFL experience or were a high draft pick. Well, one of them is done for the year before it even started. Justin Wally, who was the third-round pick out of Minnesota. He tore his ACL in a workout with the Ravens on Tuesday. So now you're down to 5. 2 or 3 of those guys are injured. So Sam Womack, who was kind of an end of training camp find for the Niners, started about half of last year for the Colts. He's a starter right now. Jonathan Edwards, who is a rookie out of Tulane, was getting reps with the ones. Chris Lamons, who was with the team the last couple of years, but literally brought back to camp last week. He was getting some time with the ones yesterday. Every NFL team goes through something like that, and that's what the Colts are going through right now.
Yeah, and again, you're going to have some of the bumps and bruises on it. What you hate to see is what happened, like you said to Wally there, with the ACL. I mean, that's as a coach and somebody that knows what these guys put into it to get their opportunity to go in the league, and all of a sudden you tear an ACL. I mean, that's just a tough deal for the kid.
And Justin was a kid that a lot of folks thought he was a third-day draft pick, and he was a third-round pick. He had made the Colts look good in terms of everybody on the staff saying, no, this is the guy we want, and getting reps, and had looked the part. So it's you're right. It's terrible for the kid. He had been proving the Colts right in a very short sample size. So hopefully he's able to bounce back in 2026.
And that was what that was what hurts for me from a coach's perspective when you hear the reports that you're getting about his performance up to that point. Everything was moving in the right direction from the front office down. So anyway, with that, what defensively, new DC, I thought, for the most part against the Ravens, and they and getting some of the reports when they worked out against each other, seemed like the defense did pretty decently and got some pressure in that game as well. How's it how is that chemistry building now there with the new DC and what they have on the field, even though now they're behind the 8 ball with the DB situation?
Well, again, we'll see what this team does from a pass rush standpoint. They've invested, obviously, the last couple of years first-round draft pick in Laiatu Latu last year, JT Tuimoloau being a second-round pick this year. You add that to Kwity Paye, who was a first-round pick in 2021, Samson Ebukam, who did good things for you in 23, then tears his Achilles on basically the second day of training camp in 24 and misses all of last year. Plus, you know exactly what you got in defensive tackle in terms of Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. That is as good of a defensive tackle pairing as you have in the league. In other words, you think you have all the pieces in terms of pass rush and in terms of practices, and frankly, even against the Ravens, you have seen that. You know, the guys have been active in terms of getting into the backfield. So, you know, there's only so much that you're going to show defensively in terms of the preseason. You're not, you know, kind of revealing all your secrets or showing all your exotic stuff. We know that Lou's defense, Lou Anarumo in from Cincinnati, is going to be far more aggressive than Gus Bradley's defense. And before that, Matt Eberflus. Expect to see a bit of a difference in terms of, you know, a little more press man coverage, being a little more aggressive. You know, is this a team because they've gone from a primary 4-3 to their primary is going to be a 4-2. You know, their primary look is going to be 5 defensive backs. How aggressive are you in terms of blitzing, you know, in that scenario? Do you think you have the pieces with front 4 to get pressure with just those guys? And so, frankly, we won't have an answer on that, to be frank with you, until September the 7th, because you're not going to be kind of, you know, showcasing things. But there's some hope here. But frankly, there's investment there.
Yeah.
You go out and you sign Shavarius Ward. You go out and you sign Cam Bynum, you know, to shore up your secondary. You draft a pass rusher in round number 2. Now let's see if all these pieces fit.
Yeah, and that 4-2 defense is, hey, you're putting speed on the field is what you're hoping, is getting guys on the speed. So I know you're up against time, buddy, so I appreciate you coming on. We'll get, you know, maybe next time I'm on, we'll talk a little bit of high school football, since that is right around the corner.
Sure.
And you're heavily involved down there in the Indy area with the broadcast that you do as well. So get you next time. Appreciate it. And go Colts, I guess would be the word of the day.
Sounds good, my friend. It's good to catch up with you.
Yes, sir. Greg Rakestraw from Colts Radio, and giving his take on the Indianapolis Colts. And, you know, the thing about injuries is lost reps. And that's the hard part, is losing the amount of reps that these injured guys are going to have. And that's the one thing with the Colts that they're fighting right now, especially in that secondary. And hopefully they'll get themselves better. Their wide receivers a little bit banged up, but you got to like what you've got in that group. And like Greg said there, the battle for the number 1 spot at the quarterback position is still in flux, and will be for a while. It will probably hinge a lot on this week 2 preseason game against Green Bay, in terms of giving them an identity as it pertains to what they're going to be next with that spot. But at this point in time, I thought Riley Leonard, and I didn't get a chance to talk, you know, bring him up in our conversation. I thought he looked pretty darn good for his first opportunity in the NFL. And he did quite well in his opportunity that was given to him. Was able to move the ball pretty effectively here and there. And was it perfect? No, but I thought it gave a pretty good look at what they have in him. And I think they'll be just fine with that young man. And he's a competitor, and he's got the mobility to get out of trouble, as he did a couple times there in that game. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of Riley Leonard, because I thought he looked pretty darn good being thrust into the action on Friday there. So we're going to step aside, take our first break right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Monday, August the 11th, as the Indiana Hoosiers just wrapped up their second week of fall camp, heading into the last couple of weeks here before they play Old Dominion in their first game in Bloomington. And I know this scrimmage on Saturday, from most reports, went well. And Big Ten Network was there on Friday doing their segment of their Big Ten tour all through the Big Ten Conference. And I think the Big Ten Network, summarizing a little bit here, was pretty optimistic on what Indiana had out on the field. And in some respects, a little surprised, I thought, in some of their comments. But I think they thought the Indiana offensive line has been upgraded in terms of what they have, which I think is a very true sentiment amongst many. And they really liked Mendoza and what he brought to the table. And they thought the guys that on defense that they added up front, Hosa Wheeler, Ratcliffe, and those individuals that are there to fill the gap that they lost with C.J. West, have been showing up pretty regularly, daily, on the right side of things. And so I think they came away with Indiana making a step forward on top of what they were able to accomplish a year ago. So that's an interesting dynamic. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you can find it on the Big Ten Network, or if you have a Big Ten Plus subscription, you can pick that up. We'll circle back to that in aspect of things with the camp and things like that, because I don't know how much hitting they did. Now, Kurt Signetti is not big on bringing tackle to the ground concepts in camp. I think last year they had actually only one day of camp where they tackled to the ground, which, in my opinion, being a former coach, is just unheard of. I mean, because you're the most aspects of football, one of the hardest things to do is tackle, and getting guys wrapped up the correct way, taken down, not having a ton of missed tackles and things like that. And Indiana last year was really good of first contact and getting a guy down and not giving up a lot of what we call yak yards, first contact type of yards. And very few missed tackles throughout the season. It's just really phenomenal that what they're able to get accomplished in their drills and teaching the technique that they need to be utilizing. But it also goes to show you the type of athletes that they've got, because that's another part of the equation. The guys running around on the field. And if you've got really good athletes running around on the field, you're going to have some guys that can go out and play ball and tackle. So I don't know if that Saturday's practice was a full go type of deal, but Friday's practice was in the stadium, and from all accounts, even with the Big Ten Network, they were, like I said, I thought they went there thinking it's, Indiana probably not going to be as good as they were a year ago. I thought they came away thinking the opposite of that. I think they came away feeling that Indiana has made a true step forward in their recruitment and portal recruitment that added the pieces needed for them to be really good this year. So, but if you get a chance to watch it, I always like and enjoy the way they do their media day or their tour for the Big Ten Network for all the different schools that they get to. And I think they do a great job presenting the fans of football a pretty good insight and look into each team's camp. So if you get a chance to pick that up on the Big Ten Network or Big Ten Plus, I encourage you to do that as well. We'll circle back to maybe some Indiana talk a little bit later. But and I know Jim will be joining us here. I think he said around 10, because I think we're tagging off a little bit today. He's going to be joining us, I believe, from maybe the beach. He's so gunned up on getting to some places that he's never been able to broadcast from. So he may be joining from the beach. I told him, don't wear a Speedo. But the Hoosiers trip to San Juan has been thus far a eventful couple games, this time against the Serbian Mega Superbet team. Indiana was, a very, very slow opening few minutes there and got themselves behind the 8 ball. But go on a 70-19 run. Unbelievable. And they have a rematch today with that same team at 11 a.m. to finish up their tour of down there in Puerto Rico. But I think there was a lot of things learned in this game against Mega Superbet the other night, as Indiana won 93-71, aided by the 17-19 run. That is crazy. And I think Indiana was down as much as 24 in the first quarter. Because of the international rules, they play quarters. And so it got a little, when I was following along, I was getting a little lost, like, quarters, what are they doing? And then I realized it's the international rule. But Indiana, it was, I thought that showed a ton about a team coming together, down as much as they were, not worried and pointing fingers, but buckling down and getting after it, and just started chipping away at that league, knocking down shots. I think Wilkerson was the leading scorer. Hold on here. Yes. He had 18 points on the night. He was 57% from 3-point land. And 7 out of 11 from the field. He played really well. I think even the Ristic kid got a ton of minutes. I mean, he ended up playing almost 25 again, I think. And from all accounts, his defense was pretty good. But Indiana's defense rose in that second, quarter and stuff, and they got after it pretty good. And I know there's a question mark about their size. And again, I think that is going to be a thing they're going to have to work around. But I think against that team last Friday, it showed a little bit that it may not be as a big issue as what people think they are. But I thought they played well, and in that spurt of time, it's kind of tough to get the feel for a ball game. Just getting, things relayed to you via Twitter or whatever. But I thought for the most part, Indiana showed a ton on that ball game that has to make you feel pretty good about what they've got in that locker room from the perspective of kids that want to compete irregardless of the scoreboard. And that in itself, besides coming back and making that 70-19 run, I think showed much more to me about what Coach DeVries has got in the locker room and talent-wise on that court for Indiana. But Trent Sicily played almost 30 minutes. He had 10 points. So the young pup has looked pretty decent in these first couple ball games. And I know a lot of talk and a lot of things were talked about the roughness of this ball game. It was very physical. I don't think anything cheap, but it was very physical of a ball game. And the Serbian team, I believe, was, mostly the instigator of that physicality. And I think in the international type of game, they maybe let some things go that we would probably normally think of a foul. But I do believe that Indiana end up matching that physicality, which they need to do anyway. And that, coupled with what they were able to do by chipping away at that score, made a huge come from behind win. And they go for the sweep today at 11 o'clock. And I know that Jim will have us all up to date on things that are there on scene. He'll be around 10 this morning. Maybe he'll have one of those Cubans that he's talked about. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a good trip for Indiana. Hopefully they cap it off today and are able to move on with what they have there going from a team standpoint, heading back to Indiana. And then again, they still have a ton of time to get themselves ready for the season. But this is something that will help catapult them into that next grind of building up till they get back at it, in October. But it was great to see. It was a great crowd from what I understanding down there. I guess a lot of Hoosier fans flew down for that game and probably made a long weekend out of it. And so they had a pretty good crowd there. The arena that they played in, named after Roberto Clemente, was a really nice arena. I guess there was a lot of talk about that as well. But it was definitely a great way to win, walk into the weekend Yeah, and then Cheryl says they were made her hopeful with good consistently. So yeah, I think they really came off in a good way there. And like I said, Wilkerson was really good. He had 18. Alex, I'm trying to read this box score, and it's not a very good deal. He had 13. I know Connor Enright finished with 6. And there were a few others there that had, pretty good days on the court. Tucker DeFries had, I think, 10. And so all around, just a great win for Indiana in that exhibition game. One thing here before we head to break, before we get Dustin Dopirak on, there is reports now that the NCAA is looking at having what they're calling a rolling signing day concept that would allow recruits to sign early instead of waiting to certain periods, which I think is fantastic. It would allow recruits to sign as soon as August 1st of their senior year. And to me, that would be great, because now you get kids locked up by August 1. You're not worrying about carrying them to that December period. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that. I thought that was an interesting thing that came off the wire a little bit ago, and On3 had a little article on it as well. But we'll talk about the possibility of that rolling signing day concept and allowing kids to sign early as August 1st of their senior year. We'll step aside here. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll be waiting for Dustin Dopirak. There's some things broiling in the Pacer world. Get his take on a few things. But we'll do all that right after this here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back here to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for now for Jim Coyle. He'll be back around 10 from the beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, as we finish up the Indiana Hoosiers 3-game set there in Puerto Rico. Looking to make it a sweep today at 11 o'clock. Jim will have all the details of that and maybe what to expect and get his viewpoint of the game. Of course, he was right there in the thick of it, and he'll be able to fill us in on some of the things that he thought of this big comeback win for the Hoosiers and making a 70-19 run to do so. Couple other things I wanted to mention about Saturday's scrimmage with Indiana. The young pups, Baldwin and Bond, have had a pretty good camp. And there are potential possibilities where they both could see some time this year. So it's going to be interesting to see out of that class, who comes to the forefront of guys that maybe potentially be utilized in the ball game on once the season rolls around. So that has been very good. I guess the battle between Carter Smith and Kamara has been really good. Two of the best guys at their position up front. They battle against each other each and every day. So it's going to be a pretty good battle there with what's going on as well. And some other notes there too. Boykin, the kid from transfers from NC State, has done a great job too at safety. And of course that is big help, especially what happened with Lewis Moore. You don't know in that regard. But the offensive line, defensive line have been done well. And it's been interesting to see the growth of this ball club thus far, just in a 2-week time period. So I think it's going to be something that Indiana fans are going to be proud of once they step on the field. And I found this one that was very interesting. Kurt Cignetti, his record since 2019, before the month of October hits, is 20-1. 20-1 is his record since 2019. So that would encompass, of course, James Madison era and Elon and some of those D1 schools. And then, of course, his year last year. But 20-1 before the month of October hits. That's called getting your team off to a great start. It's crazy the amount that guy, record-wise and things of that magnitude, didn't get a better, didn't get the call from the big leagues sooner. And I'm happy that he was around for Indiana, and Dolson was an AD that did his homework on that and was able to put aside anything about somebody from a group of 5 or somebody's age and saw this guy's a winner, and he's won wherever he's been. And I believe he can do here, and he made the right call. But 20-1 for Sig prior to the start of October is just, again, a phenomenal thing. So we wait here for Dustin Dopirak. I'm going to get play some of the interviews here that happened there in Puerto Rico. We'll add, I believe this is Lamar Wilkerson.
So what did you feel was the biggest thing that you guys not only did to change the game, but kind of learn just as far as fight? I know you're 10 practices in, but just what did you learn as far as your ability to fight?
Just stick together when stuff get hard. We're better in numbers, so we just fought through and then just brought our physicality up a little bit, and then it helped us a lot in the second half.
What did Coach say to you guys when you were down around 20 in the first quarter, second quarter? What was his main message at that time?
This is what we needed. We had 8 weeks to practice or whatever. We always played each other, never faced adversity for real. So, he wanted to see how we was going to respond when we got down 20. And obviously, we stuck together, we came back, and we beat adversity.
You obviously turned the defense up in the second half, but it wasn't just the defense. That was also leading to a lot of great offense for you guys. You really got into the flow. What did you defensively to change to get there?
Nothing. Like I said, we just played more physicality. At first, they was punking us. They was being more physical. They was, getting the extra plays that, we needed, allowing them to get offensive rebounds, stuff like that. So once we started turning that away and then we got out of transition and run and just be us, then that's when the tables turned.
How much does it help you guys just to have to learn and adjust on the fly? And again, it's August. There's so many scenarios you guys haven't even been through. How much does it help just to be kind of get punched in the mouth and have to figure it out?
Man, that's great, man, because we'd rather get punched in the mouth right now than in March. So, face it right now and then face it with chin up and then, just take the punches, roll with them.
You talked in that practice when we talked to you guys. A lot of you talked about who the voices would be, who the leaders would be, older guys wanting to lead. What was it like in those huddles when you are down 15, 17, 20 points, and you guys maybe do need to, sort of step up and lead for each other?
Just telling one another that, stuff happens, man. We get down, we get up. Got to be the same team whether we're up 20 or down 20. And ultimately, everybody's talking. Most not be as vocal as others, but everybody's talking, everybody's communicating. So whether y'all see it or not, it's 14 talking the whole time.
Shannon, you're muted.
Thank you for reminding me that. I had to make sure that I wasn't speaking or something in the background, but that was Lamar Wilkerson talking about the physicality that Mega Superbet had at that game the other day down there in Puerto Rico, and Indiana battling back and coming back from a 20 some odd point deficit and a 70-19 run. Have you ever heard any of that before? When I saw that stat, I thought it was wrong. But I've never seen a 70.
I was just reading Zach Osterman's story. I mean, obviously this stuff isn't available on TV. I was just looking through the box score just to get my bearings about this. And wow, like 70-19 is crazy. And especially against that team. I mean, I think, certainly when you're playing some of the teams down from Puerto Rico, like you expect there to be a size difference in Indiana's favor and whatnot. Mega is, like they're built to produce NBA talent. That's the purpose of that club. They're very young, but they basically go out after high level, talent in Serbia, and they view themselves as like a college program, even though they are professional. They view their goal was to produce NBA talent. Certainly, you saw them play. Indiana played them a couple of years ago when Mike Woodson was coach. I think his first year when they went down to the Bahamas. And so Nikola Jovic was on that team. He's still obviously playing for the Heat. So to fall behind to those guys, you think, okay, we're at a different level here, and this is going to get ugly. To be able to turn around on a group like that and win 70-19 is just a 70-19 run is insane.
It's just crazy. And again, taking a little bit from that, and we'll get into some Pacer talk because you had a couple articles out that I think were important for Pacer fans. But again, that was the thing that I liked about it, and what it showed to me is the team chemistry early on already, being down that much, being out physicaled, that they didn't press, they didn't, point fingers or take bad shots, in that time period. They just kind of regrouped, matched the intensity and physicality, and ran their offense and got some looks and knocked down some threes. And next thing you know, they clawed their way back in it. But you're correct, 70-19. Oh, never seen it. I don't think we'll ever see something like that again. But we'll find out today, because the rematch today at 11 would be pretty good.
Sure, no, for sure. But yeah, to your point, I mean, the chemistry thing is really impressive. Like, just considering it's a start over. It's a complete and total start over. I mean, it's hard enough to do that with a team that you've been with, with a group of guys that and have been around for years and kind of can trust, okay, he's going to step it up here and I can do this and I know where he's going to be. And you have that trust, you have that chemistry built. And, these guys, I mean, how long have they been practicing? 2 months together? And none of them wore an IU uniform last year. 0. It's amazing, to be able to find that within you in Puerto Rico. Like you're not at home. It's not like you're in Assembly Hall and you're getting the getting your energy from like your fans or whatever. I mean, you're probably they're probably in a pretty much empty gym and trying to and playing a team from Serbia, and it's neither one of you have a whole big fan base there. Maybe some IU folks traveled. But that's it, and so you're looking around at guys that you've been practicing with for, a couple months. You were on a totally different team last year. So were they. And you're expected to figure out a role and know that guy's going to accomplish his role. And that's, to be able to come together in that scenario, again, with that level of experience together it says a lot about a group of guys to be able to function that way and know what to do with your egos, know when you're supposed to be the guy to go get the shots and know when the other guy is. And that's, not easy stuff to do. So it's a heck of an accomplishment. Obviously, it's August, this stuff doesn't count, but it can be, I was just reading Zach's story. Like, it is a game that you can point back to and circle and say, man, remember when we did this? To get one of those in August helps, it makes a difference. It's nice to have that in your back pocket when you get into even November and you might be behind at some point in time. It's, important stuff.
Yeah, no question. It's going to be a game that I know that Coach DeFries has already talked about, his impression of it, in most ways thinking it was going to go the opposite way. He was waiting for the more bad to happen instead of what did and transpired, because he liked the fact that they got punched in the nose and the fact that they were getting out physical. It showed the character of the team and what happens when adversity sets in.
Right.
What happens when, all of a sudden things aren't going right. So it says a lot about the character of the ball club, the chemistry, everything that goes with it. And, it happens in football as well.
Sure.
What happens when you get punched in the nose, like Indiana against Michigan State last year, they were down 10, all of a sudden they came back and scored 43 straight points. So it's very, very, a good sign. Let's just put it that way. It's a good sign. In a lot of ways. But let's jump over to some Pacer stuff here. I know it's the summer and things are kind of
very quiet
on the Pacer front, but you did have I believe a chance to Carlisle had some comments, I guess, here recently about kind of what he expects, what the Pacers will look like heading into this year. And I think you've even said this, it's going to be a very different look, talking about the loss of Halliburton, of course, and things of that nature. But why don't you kind of give us a summary of that conversation that Carlisle had about, looking different of what with losing Halliburton and things the summer and things like that, and maybe getting a little more youthful in the program as well.
Yeah. First off, to give credit, he was on the podcast of Caitlin Cooper. Caitlin she has a site called Basketball She Wrote. She's just an incredible basketball mind. And it was really cool to kind of see those two talk. Like Caitlin's stuff, what you read, what you hear talk about on podcasts, it's such high level basketball. It is beyond my realm. So she's amazing with just what she's done with that site. So Rick, obviously you saw there was she put out a video clip on Twitter, basically just of where Rick took a moment to kind of stop and compliment her for what she's done, with that site, with all of her writing, with her kind of X's and O's breakdowns. So just first to give credit so that I'm not stealing that. That wasn't a conversation I had with Rick. That was
right.
So I did. I was watching somebody else's interview, and so that's what's come out of it. But I thought it was interesting to him kind of acknowledge what was going to change, but say that basically the core idea is they want it to stay the same, and the balance is still going to be interesting, and it starts with, okay, what's Benedict Matherin's game going to look like? I think that's sort of the kind of turnkey piece there that you're going to wonder about. Okay, like how is that going to change style of play? Because throughout the last 3 years, and especially the last 2 years, they've been trying to make kind of round off Matherin's kind of hard edges. He's a guy that naturally is this sort of isolation player. He is a guy that is most comfortable. He loves one-on-one situations. Like, he wants to beat a person. That's, when Mathurin looks at guys, like, he draws inspiration from guys like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, but like Kobe in particular, he wants to be that guy that, like, I want it to be me versus you. I want to beat you. I want to embarrass you, and I want to remind you of that every day for the rest of your life. That's how Benedict Mathurin operates. Like, he was like a guest reporter. I can't remember. I don't know if it was the finals or what, or some event that the Pacers weren't involved in, and they sent him out, and like, basically, you're supposed to ask one question, and like, everybody gets a laugh out of it when it's a player asking a player a question. But like, I can't remember who he was talking to. Mathurin was like, "Well, do you remember when Benedict Mathurin beat you one-on-one in this camp?" 6 years ago. Do you remember what that was like? Like Mathurin remembers those. Like those aren't games that count. Like Mathurin remembers like one-on-ones at camps or whatever when it was just you and him. And so that's his style of play. That's naturally how he feels. He likes the idea of lined up, crossing you up a couple times, driving on you and make you either foul him or scoring on you so he can really embarrass you. And that doesn't fit for the Pacers. You know, that's not how they play. And he's got this great skill set, and it's, you know, for Carlisle's view, it's like trying to get him to play the way everyone else plays. But also somehow he has to acknowledge that there is time in a basketball game where, you know, the ball doesn't move the way it's supposed to, or the defense moves fast enough that it's not giving up, you know, like it's not losing guys. It's not, you know, giving up lanes, easy lanes to drive the basket. It's not getting beat down court. And, you know, it does slow up and forces somebody to have to make a play. And Mathurin's generally good in those scenarios, Mathurin and Siakam both. So he is still in this continual project of trying to make this work. And it's a question of, okay, well, how is it going to be harder to, you know, convince him to do that when Halliburton's not on the court? You know, basically when Halliburton's on the court, the ball moves, it finds the open guy, it finds the guy who's running hard. It doesn't necessarily find the guy who's waiting to square somebody up. And so, you know, like that's why Mathurin has kind of struggled to maintain a starting spot, you know, over the last couple of years, because he's been trying. I mean, he's getting better at quick decisions, catch and shoot threes, those kinds of things. But he's still not all the way there. And he wants to drive in a crowd of bodies and go through people and dunk on somebody. Like that's his natural inclination. And so it's been this constant battle of trying to make him operate differently. And so, you know, like there were times this year when Halliburton was out and, you know, the game worked in such a way that Mathurin had, you know, got to just go play his game, and he got 20, 25 points in a game, and that's the only reason they win it. So Carlisle said even during the course of the season, he had to have a conversation like after he had a stretch of like 3 20-point games in a row, and then he only had like 5 or 10 when Halliburton was back. And Rick had to kind of acknowledge, like, I know this is kind of an unfair thing I'm asking you to do. Like when Halliburton's out there, I'm asking you to catch and shoot and move the ball quick and, you know, not cross over 3 times and drive into bodies. But then when Halliburton's out, I'm asking you to do that. And I know that's not fair, but that's what it is. So there still is a question in my mind of what that's going to look like. I mean, you know, are they, because when you saw when Halliburton was out this year, Halliburton has so much gravity. I mean, I think just even stuff like you'll see him, you know, go downhill on a pick and roll and 2 bodies follow him. So he can do that throwback pass to Miles Turner at the top of the key, and Turner's wide open you know, for that top of the key 3. And, you know, we flip things up and you have Nembhard run the same play and the gravity doesn't work the same. You know, like somebody sticks with Turner, that pick and pop 3 isn't as wide open as it is when Halliburton goes. So the question is like, is Mathurin going to find himself in a position saying like, this is all I can do, man. Like I don't have the wide open catch and shoot 3. Like I need to, you know, if we're going to get points, I got to go at somebody. So it's going to be interesting what that looks like. But I think that being said, Rick still wants it to operate the other way. And he still looks at it and say, well, Andrew Nembhard fits this way. Aaron Nesmith fits this way. Pascal Siakam fits this way. You know, the Jay Huff who they got will probably fit that way. You know, Isaiah Jackson's going to fit that way. Obi Toppin fits this way. You know, TJ McConnell, like all these guys play this style. And so it can't be you're changing the entire system so that it fits Benedict Mathurin. You know, that can't work either. So it's going to be interesting to see just how he blends all of that. And, you know, I guess how much he holds Mathurin to the idea of you have to be this guy. There will be certain things I think he has to. There will probably be days, though, he lets him, you know, go cross somebody up. So I think that all that stuff was interesting. I thought it was interesting him just saying, he said, we have to protect Andrew Nembhard. I thought that was an interesting thing they pointed out. The minutes can't be that high because at the end of the day, he's going to be asked to both bring the ball up, initiate offense, and defend, you know, the other guy's best, you know, perimeter player, you know, defend the ball handler. And number one, that's a lot of minutes to ask on your body. And number 2, there's a foul issue, you know, and he pointed out, I think over the course of the conversation that he says like, you know, how many times did Halliburton get 2 fouls in a game? You know, I think it was like 2 all season. How many times did Andrew Nembhard get 2 fouls in the game's first 5 minutes? Lots. You know? So like if you're going to be, you know, like, you know, Halliburton, they try to hide, you know, that's, you know, Halliburton has defensive skills, but you're not putting him on, you know, the opponent's best player ever. Nembhard, you're doing it every time. And so, he's picking up guys 94 feet, and so somewhere in there, you're going to end up getting handsy and picking up a cheap hand check foul or whatever, or, he's just going to come at you and you're going to get called even if you didn't do anything. When he's defending guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Brunson. So he had to be prepared for that. So I thought that was interesting stuff. But I think, he also just said, I think this team has to be more physical. And I think it is going to be interesting that, 2 years ago, this was a team that couldn't defend anybody,
right.
Just go back to October, November, December of 2023. And these guys weren't guarding anybody. They were giving up 150 points, they gave up 152 to a game to Atlanta and won. They beat the Hawks 157-152 in one of those NBA Cup in-season tournament, group play games. And, this could be the total opposite in kind of a 2-year, 24-month span. They could be a team that's far more defensive oriented than they are offensive oriented, just because they're going to lean into Nembhard and Nesmith and McConnell and Siakam and even Mathurin, who's grown a lot as a defender, and trusting those guys to be physical, because they're not going to have Halliburton pushing the pace, but they're also not going to have Halliburton as a guy that you're trying to hide defensively. They're going to be able to run 5 guys out there that they trust to play defense. That could make a wholly different. Just a wholly different dynamic and a whole different identity. Not a whole different identity, but a significantly different identity for this team.
Well, the other thing, too, that I picked up, reading through it, and he talked about having depth over top-heavy stars on the ball club, looking at it from the standpoint, we're going to need depth and just going out and getting big-name people.
Sure.
That may be available through free agency, but, talking about the depth and what that will mean for them. And I think that in itself will be something that should help in the, like you were saying, being a more physical, pressure-oriented defense. You're going to need that depth anyway, just because of the foul situation that you may get into with having that mindset.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, that depth was why they got where they got at the end of the day. They bet on depth, and they're playing 11 guys in the playoffs. Like, that's not normal. Usually you get to the playoffs and you cut it down to 8 and you say, okay, like, I want more minutes out of my starters. Like, I want to lean on those guys more. And the Pacers, zigged when everybody else zagged and said, okay, I'm going to go, we're going to go do, pressure defense, 94 feet, picking up the ball handler, like right after the inbound, and doing that every play. And that's not normal. That's not typical. You're generally trying to, tone that down a little bit and pick up about half quarter, and so that you're not running your star players ragged, basically, because you're saying, okay, like, I'd rather, like you relax, give them breaks during the regular season so you can lean on them for 38 to 40, in the playoffs, basically. And that's certainly what the Knicks did. That's what a lot of teams do, is say, like, okay, like, I am, playing 2-shift basketball, during the regular season, so that I can say, guys like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, like, I want 40 out of you, somewhere in that range. And, Jordan going back and like those kind of players and saying, like, okay, like, we're going to lean on these guys and we're going to trust that they've got enough left. And the Pacers, decided again to say, okay, like, no, we're still going to throw 2 waves at you. We're going to play our bench heavy minutes, so that, like, we're going to not stop running the entire time. We're going to have fresh legs out there the entire time, and we're going to press the entire time. And we're not going to get tired because we're going to keep running guys, and we're going to trust guys to play. You're going to trust somebody like Ben Shepherd, who might average 3 to 5 points a game, but he's going to get up in you for, for 94 feet. Basically, he can be a guy who comes off the bench and defends a ball handler and, maybe does that for 10, 11 minutes. And, that's plenty that he's done his job to wear you out, even if it doesn't score at all, even if it doesn't take a shot. Ben Shepherd has still done something valuable. If he runs down the floor every time and defends, he's served his purpose in that regard. And so they have a lot of the same, guys. They're missing a superstar, and that's major, but they obviously still, they were running with basically 3-point guards last year, with Halliburton and Nembhard and McConnell, and they could put 2 of them on the floor at any point in time and let Halliburton run around off the ball, and McConnell or Nembhard bring it up. And, that takes lets everybody else rest their legs a little bit, or just be in a rested situation, basically just keep everybody fresh as far as bringing the ball up, but as far as running around, making it harder to square up on Halliburton. All those things were really helpful. And so it's a tough deal just to have a guy on the roster who can't play. You have an injured reserve in the NBA. It's not like you get to, you get to replace that guy money wise, but that's a roster spot where you don't have a player. He's out there, so they're going to have to use, and they do trust their 2-way contract guys. That's one thing that's really helpful for them. I think, Quentin Jackson has proven that he can play. You only get 50 games that you're allowed to suit up for when you're a 2-way contract guy. But Quentin started 7 games last year in November. So that's a guy deep at the end of your bench that you can trust, you can bring in, basically if you've got him suited up. I thought Ray J. Dennis had a really good summer league and proved that he could play point guard. And so you add Cam Jones, who they drafted. So that gives you a lot of backcourt depth. You've already got a bunch of wings between Mathurin, Neesmith, Shepard, Walker, Johnny Furphy, who can play a lot of those positions 2 to 4, basically. And so you can run in a lot of guys in and out. It'll be interesting to see what kind of, shifts they put together with that group. Jones can play the 2 as well. So there are a lot of opportunities there. They've got 4 centers on the roster. Losing Miles Turner obviously hurts, but right now you've got 4 different bodies that can go out there, whether they'll keep Tony Bradley on a non-guaranteed contract or not, or if they'll decide to move on from him and go pick up somebody else. Be interesting to see. Certainly they got to figure out, how much they trust Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman coming off of Achilles tendon tears. And that's going to be its own piece, but they are going to have a lot of options as far as bodies are concerned. So they will be able to play you that way. Just try to exhaust you and wear you out. How it'll be certainly less effective when you don't have that superstar that you're kind of wearing everybody out for. Basically, you're wearing everybody out so Ty Halliburton can close, but also wearing it out so he can ease up on defense too. But they will still have that part of their game there that they're going to be able to rely on a lot of people that they trust to contribute. And, Rick's going to give them trust. Rick's going to believe in them. He's, and he's going to play 10, 11 guys every night, and he'll probably even change rotations to make sure all of those wings get a shot. That he'll make sure Furphy gets some minutes this year. He'll make sure Cam Jones gets some minutes this year. Make sure they have opportunities early so that down the line, he knows he could trust them. You are going to see, I think, him lean into that a lot. He's been leaning into it the last 3 years, but you're going to see it even more, I think, this year when you're trying to piece a lot of things together without, with your superstar out.
Well, Dustin, I appreciate you coming on today, talking some Pacers on a time period, but, it's not a lot going on in the summer in the professional basketball leagues. But I thought that was some interesting insights of the mindset of Coach Carlisle moving the Pacer team forward without some of these guys that helped this past year. So good take on all that. Appreciate you being on. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time.
We'll do. Thanks so much, Shannon.
All right, Dustin Dopirak from the Indianapolis Star joining us there. When we come back, we'll hope that Jim Coyle has found his spot and can join us from Puerto Rico and talk a little bit about this last game for Indiana. We'll do all that right after this here on the Indiana Sports Beat Network.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, FreeThink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. FreeThink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. FreeThink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what FreeThink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on a Monday as we start off the work week on a positive note with the Hoosiers' big come-from-behind win down in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Hopeful that Jim Coyle can join us here shortly from the beautiful beaches of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Of course, I hope he doesn't get blown away because those trade winds can be pretty bad down there this time of year. But Indiana coming off that big win over the Serbian Superbets team, 93-71, erasing a 20-some-odd point deficit there and getting a huge win against a really physical and good Mega Superbet team that, like Dustin was referencing, is built for building NBA talent. And so they've had a few over the years. So it's good competition for Indiana to have. And I think it's going to be a 3-game period of time that's really going to help catapult them into the rest of their preparation for the next upcoming season there in Bloomington. So it's very positive, especially if they come back today and get another W over this the Superbet team and play the game from start to finish that they're capable of playing, but having that physicality that they had to go up against and end up matching, and then going on that 70-19 run to get that victory. We heard from Lamar Wilkerson earlier on his take on it. He led all scores the other night with I think a game high 18 for him. So good game for Lamar, but we'll get hopefully Jim's take on what will be the end of the 3-game setup match game here today down there at 11. And I know everybody's kind of frustrated that there's no radio / stream and things of that nature. And like I said, in the exhibition, these type of exhibition games that they have where they're not on campus or something to that extent, I do wonder, and I'm just speaking out of a NCAA's maybe perspective on all this, but I just wonder if there is a rule against any type of promotional stuff and actually doing broadcast and TV against these type of games down there. And I was surprised that, of course, the Serbian team, I thought maybe they'd bring their own crew and try to find it there via the YouTube. But of course, when they're playing, it's probably a situation where it may not be the greatest time back home, especially if it was Friday night. Now today may not be too bad if they had a presence there media wise, but I was hoping maybe there'd be like a YouTube link or something, but I wasn't able to find it. So that is disappointing because you'd like to get your eyes on this ball club, but we have to utilize the media that is there covering this event and giving some great coverage there on the Hoosier.com. Alec Lashley was there. He gave a great couple pieces there. So don't forget about that with the Hoosier.com. And then, of course, our one and only Jim Coyle being able to be there on site to give his breakdown as well of this ball club and what to expect from them as this season approaches. As you know, it goes fast. Look at Indiana football. We're, like I said, a couple weeks out from them teeing it up against Old Dominion, which I think will be a heck of a ball game for a first game. I think Old Dominion's going to be a really good ball club. They got some veteran players. They've also had some portal pickups as well. Fairly young team. They just brought football back there not too long ago. And I do think that game will be a really good first game for Indiana, even though you've got everybody wanting to talk about their schedule still from 2024. But that'll be a good game for them. And then, of course, they got Kennesaw State and Indiana State to finish it up. So I'm anxious to see the Indiana's ball club as well and what they bring to the table. And you got to feel excited with what's potentially, from an Indiana fan's perspective, what this ball club has done in the recruiting department via the portal and how they've been set up to have success. And that goes right to Scott Dolson and his group there in the support aspect of the athletic department, the president as well, because that's what it takes to have a successful football or any athletic program for that matter, is the support from the top down and understanding that everything they're doing is to get a product on, whether it's the football field or the basketball court, that gets the fan base and alumni excited. And you heard Coach Signetti mention this the other day, about the alumni base of Indiana and how, they're coast to coast, north and south, they're all over the place. I think they're the second biggest alumni base only to Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And fundraising this past year, which I know a little bit about, that was my quote unquote second career after I was done coaching, went through the roof. And many people that had not been a supporter, or those that maybe had stopped supporting the college or the university, all of a sudden came back in the fold and helped the university. And I'm not talking just, helping athletics. I'm talking about the university as a whole now. Scholarships, operating fund, all those things went through the roof this past year because the fan base was overly ecstatic of what the football program brought to the table. And that's why when you have a president and an AD on the same page of what they want and how they're going to get it, and understand that it's going to take a monumental investment, what you get on the return is what they're seeing now in enrollment numbers, in fundraising efforts, and so forth. So again, you got to give the credit where credit's due there in terms of that vision of Indiana football being a winning mindset and doing the right thing and getting the right man at the right time to push this program forward and Coach Signetti. So they've done a heck of a job. And now with basketball doing what they're doing, you got to feel that they're on the right track in terms of how they're approaching this. And they were prepared to go into this new era of NIL and profit sharing and things of that nature. I know they did some case studies prior to all this going down on what this would look like at a place like Indiana. So they did their homework extensively to be prepared to take on what this new thing was going to be. So appreciate that. And also want to thank our radio stations throughout this great state of Indiana. My home station, 1380 The Fan, up in the Fort Wayne area. And then, of course, the Ref down in Evansville, 97.7. Thanking them for their listeners and as well. And then up in the region area, WJOB up there, giving us a voice. And those that are listening in, appreciate you guys coming along. And got to say that that in itself makes this Indiana Sports Beat Radio one of the best reaches of any about Indiana sports throughout the state. And gonna try to bring in Mr. Coyle here if we can, as he tries to find a spot. I'm gonna wait here to see if he's gonna be able to get hooked up versus a good Wi-Fi signal. Maybe wait a little bit a little longer here, because I thought he was ready to come on, and I don't think he was quite ready yet with the Wi-Fi setup. But I think he's better now. Let's see if I can get him on here. Let's see. There he is. Can you hear me? Whoops. Can you hear me? Hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
I can't. Oh, well, good to be seen, I guess. It's been tough. Communication's a little tough here, but you can see from the background, if you're using the video, there it is. There's the Caribbean Sea back there, or Caribbean, depends on your preference, I guess. But Game 2 coming today for Indiana men's basketball as 2 p.m. The game time moved up, of course, so people can get out of town that they've been here for a week. But Coach, I am looking forward to this, because the game the other night, I've never seen a game take such a swing as that one did. I mean, by now everyone knows that Indiana was down early and down big, 44-21. And then they went on this massive 70-23 run, whatever exactly it was. It was incredible and wild, because you could actually see it. It started happening in the latter stages of the second quarter. Indiana started chipping away at that lead just before the half, and then they come back out. And it was lights out. It was like somebody flipped a switch, and the defensive intensity was unbelievable. And it led to forced turnover after forced turnover, or forced stops after forced stop, which kept turning into offense. And you could just see this, like, to use a tsunami type wave being here on an island. But yeah, it was impressive. But now we get to see them, same two teams, go at it again. So it's going to be interesting to see. This team is no joke, man. I'm talking about the Serbs, Mega Superbet. They have a lot of length. They have 4 guys that hit the tape at 6'11". Indiana has uno of those. But height is not going to be their issue this year, as I was wondering, because you better be on your horse.
Yeah. We were talking about that this morning, and I don't think I've ever seen a team come back and go on a 70-19 run ever. And I play Lamar Wilkerson's video that you took there after the game, and he talked about specifically them having to go out and match the physicality that the Serbian team brought to the court, because I don't think they were quite ready for that. And that in itself says a lot about this team, even from the standpoint of, like you said, they came out in that second half of play and just flipped the switch and played lights out for the rest of the ball game.
Yeah, it was clear that when the game started, that I was like, well, they're getting it handed to them right now. I said, but I kind of didn't expect them to be behind because this team is good. They've got this, they've got that. And they punched Indiana in the mouth, and it got them back on their heels. But then it took them a minute and they got back to their feet. And, man, it was great because it wasn't one guy either. It was everybody on that team. Whether it comes to defense, whether it comes to diving on the ball or on the floor for loose balls, everybody was involved. Everybody was a part of the offense. Everybody was a part of the defense. Hands were active and flying on defense. It has really given me a completely different perspective. But of course, as I said the other night after the game, we had no baseline for expectations because we hadn't seen them yet. So now, boy, don't doubt Indiana in the second half of the game this year. Seeing that as they can turn things around for certain.
Yeah, and Coach DeFries even said too that he was, kind of a passenger wanting to see how this team responded to that fact that they got punched in the mouth a little bit. But we've heard this before, and I've heard, even from my perspective as a coach, the one thing you want to see from your ball club is how they respond to a little adversity. And Indiana had that in full swing in that first half of ball. And for them to respond the way they did, and you said everybody, man, that in itself paints a huge picture about what they have in that locker room from A to Z in terms of a team personality.
Yeah, like I said, defensively and offensively, if you look at the score sheet from the other night, 5 players in double figures, led by Lamar Jackson, who had 18 points, 7-11 from the field. Man, he was just lining it up from deep behind the three-point line. Indiana is going to have no issues with having guys that are worthy of shooting the ball this year. Also, the free throw line. They shot 79% from the free throw line. That is right where you expect and want a team to be. And it's unfortunately been a little bit not been the case for Indiana in the recent years. But again, I don't think that's going to be an issue for this team. I think that the fans are going to enjoy watching this team play because of the effort, if nothing else. They're scrappy. They love it. I think that they love having to get down and gritty and play the games like that, because then you're on their terms, and you better be ready for it.
Well, yeah, and I guess before we have to take a quick break here, kind of give a brief, update in terms of what you think this rematch that's going to happen today is going to look like from, the perspective that you got two teams that are highly competitive, very well coached as we saw in some of the highlights. But what do you expect in today's rematch in this ball game?
Well, it's hard to have expectations, especially this early, but from what happened the other night, I expect Indiana to really try to get off to a good start. Saying a better start is way useless of saying. Of course, they have to get off to a better start. You don't want to put yourself in that position often. While it's great to see that they have that character, that ability, that drive to be able to come back to something like that. And it's great for them because it gives them the confidence of being able to do that. So whether it's 5 months from now in a Big Ten game in late February or whatever, they still will have that confidence of being able to do what they did the other night because it's already there. But I think this should be a really good game. I mean, the Serbian teams don't, man. They've got some talent. But, boy, when Indiana put the defensive clamps on them, they didn't shoot the three ball very well. They didn't shoot the ball very well overall, period, in the second half. I think Indiana's going to win. And I know Indiana has gotten up into the 90s in both of the games down here. So scoring the ball is not a problem for this team. And I don't expect it to be. I think that they're going to get more and more confident after what they did the other night. Man, I'd be walking 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's take a quick break here. We'll have more from Jim down there in San Juan, Puerto Rico, right after we get back here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back from Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on a Monday. And all the way from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Mr. Jim Coyle joining us as well, there to cover Indiana's basketball's final matchup against the Serbian Mega Superbet team today. And I guess you got to say this has been a productive trip all the way around. I don't know if you've gotten any word on what the team has gotten to do on their days off, but you got to feel that they've gotten an opportunity to take in a lot of the historical aspects there in San Juan and Puerto Rico in general.
Yeah, and the Indiana fans that came down on that trip, that's part of what was going on. So when people look at the cost of that thing, I know it was expensive, but included in that are all of the excursions that they're going on, that the team is going on as well, the coaches. So getting to be a part of that is a part of that package. So they got to do a lot of different things. I think they went down to the rainforest, which is the rainforest here. It's the only rainforest in the United States National Park System. There aren't that many rainforests around, so having one here is kind of wild. They spent time in the water. I think they went kayaking. I'm sure they went to Old San Juan and other water-related excursions, I'm sure, but just team-building type of things. But specifically, no, I haven't been out with them. But they've just tried to do some very unique and fun things, and but the team is really using this as an opportunity to bond and grow together. And I'm going to tell you that I've said it the opposite when it was the opposite last season. Right now, watching this team play, they play for each other. They are really encouraging to each other. The other night when Indiana was down, the whole bench was involved in trying to boost the players that were on the floor. Communication coming from the bench onto the floor. So it's a different. This is not your older brother's Indiana team. This is a completely different deal, and Indiana fans are going to enjoy watching the effort this team gives and the success that I think they're going to have. I look at it and I'm like, man, I think they can play with, and I think of, say, a Purdue. I'm like, I'm not saying that they're going to beat them, but I'm like, I definitely see this team playing with this Purdue team because of the defense that Indiana is going to offer at the guard position, at the way they're going to present it, which is that high-octane speed.
Yeah, one of the questions here in the chat was from Bill. He said, does you see this team playing good defense? You know, Crean could score the ball, but they lack the ability to play defense at a consistent high level. And I'm going to say yes, but I haven't seen them. But I do think, like you said, they're going to be able to play at a high rate on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, they did that very thing against Mega Superbet Saturday night. They defensively put the clamps on them, and it was a night and day different game. And so, yeah, this team can play defense. They just got knocked back onto their heels to start that game. They're not going to allow that kind of a start this time. I don't think that they were ready for the energy level that Mega Superbet brought, and they weren't prepared. So they weren't prepared to match that at the time, and they were a step or two behind. And they got their feet back under them and decided, hey, we've got to ratchet this up. This is not enough. So, yeah, that's part of these early games, these early discussions. You have to learn, where is that level that I have to bring every day? And it used to be here, and that was sufficient. But now it's got to be here all the time, which means you have to play at a higher level all the time. And so every time you move up a level in athletics, everything ratchets up. And it's the same with this college team that Darren DeBreeze has put together. Very interesting, man. I am going to be very interested, like I see, to see what this team can do this year.
Yeah, and remember, you can get all the coverage here of this game today as well. And don't forget to head on over to the Hoosier.com, as there's been some great additional pieces written there. I know Alec had one up, and I believe he's still there with you, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of things to follow along this afternoon on this ball game, even though you're getting it via Twitter and not via the radio or YouTube somehow. But wanted to get into football here before I let you go a little bit. The Big Ten Network was in town on Friday to observe their Indiana's practice, as well as their Big Ten tour that they do for the Big Ten is phenomenal. And
did they know that I was not there?
Yeah, they were wondering. That was the big question that was posed to Signetti. I think they came in thinking that this Indiana team may be taking a step back from last year's 11-1, but I think they left with a mindset that this team, in recruiting wise, took a step forward, especially up front with the offensive line. They talked very highly of the offensive line. Now, that's not something new, because me and you have said before that we believe that this offensive line is going to be one of the better ones we've seen in quite some time at Indiana. But they were taken back a little bit on how good they think this offensive line is going to be.
Yeah, everybody is kind of taking that approach to Indiana. We've talked about this more than once, and as more and more predictive things come out, I just saw the CBS's Big Ten prediction, the top 25 AP prediction has Indiana at like 23, and has Illinois like 11 maybe, and that's been kind of the same consensus for people because they're familiar with Illinois. They don't have the familiarity with Indiana's team. I don't understand why, because they brought in another really, really good quarterback. I don't see what the problem of understanding that this is a better team, but those people don't cover Indiana on a daily basis, and that's part of it. So Indiana is being overlooked. I've said that multiple times. Everybody that you talk to is kind of putting Illinois up as that potential fourth team out of the Big Ten to make the college football playoffs, or while giving Indiana a shot. It's very, very few people that I've seen have said, "Hey, man, be wary of this Indiana team." And remember, people, I said it again. But this is going to be a tough season, man. I mean, this game against Illinois, a game at Iowa, at Oregon, no joke. They're no joke. And you want to talk about tests? Those are some true tests that we'll certainly find out a lot about this Indiana football team.
Well, the other thing, they interviewed the coordinators and they talked to Brian Haynes about the defense, and one of the things he said is they feel that they were able to get the nuggets they needed to help plug the hole that CJ West left, and that Hosa Wheeler and Radcliffe are playing very well thus far in camp. And the other one that's really come along, and I said this may be the steal of the portal, is Kellen Wyatt from Maryland has really shown up in camp, and they are really excited about what he brings to the table and his versatility.
Yeah, there's always pieces that have added that people, well, they might know about it, but you don't know what it's like in this situation or in this setup, which is all new for everyone when you move to a new place. But that's why I keep telling people offensively, and this team is a better football team. Defensively, well, they did lose CJ West. Who's this year's CJ West? Because they have the capability of developing those types of players, and it's easier to go out and get more of those now once you have a little proof in the pudding to show people, as they did from last year. So I think Indiana's defense is going to be solid. Like we talked about it endogenously about the anchors on the line, a linebacker, and in the backfield. But those other positions that you just mentioned are key, those little nuggets, so to speak, because we know what those three bring us or bring Indiana. Who's going to stand out? Who's going to be that next CJ West? We'll have to wait and find that out.
Yeah, exactly. And before we let you go here, as we're getting down there to ending this Monday's session of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, I don't know if you heard this or not, but Lewis Moore is in limbo as the NCAA, I guess, denied his appeal for an additional year.
When did that denial?
Well, it must have come down sometime last week. And here's the way I understood it. When the Pavia kid at Vanderbilt sued and the federal court gave him his injunction and the ability to play this year, everyone thought that was kind of a blanket statement for those that were in the same boat as that kid was coming from a junior college. And that would be the case with Lewis Moore. Well,
yeah, no one I've talked to has understood what the difference is, why there's even a question here. And I'm going to try to get Mitt Winter on. He's been on with us several times before, sports attorney, because I want to ask that. I'm like, how is this a different situation here? Because the precedent has been set with Diego Pavia, with Vanderbilt, their quarterback there, and he got that started. And so it's beyond my pay grade, I guess, to understand how this is different. I'm not an attorney, but and I don't play one on TV. So we'll hopefully get Mitt Winter on here, and he can help us understand this a little more, because I'm firmly saying I don't get this. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, many people are in the same boat, and I am as well, because of
you got junior college eligibility.
Don't have any left, but the thing with Moore is now he has to go through a legal process that is in motion now, that hopefully he'll get an injunction against that appeal that they denied and be able to play this year. But that is a pretty big storyline now heading into this season, because he was definitely being counted upon at that safety position to add.
Well, I wouldn't count him out just yet.
No, I won't. But I don't believe now he can practice or play until that is resolved. So it'll be good to have a lawyer that can give us a better insight into that than us sitting here speculating and all that. But appreciate you being here and coming from the beautiful San Juan. It looks a little hot there today.
Oh, I'm sweating. Don't be confused.
But,
cool breeze coming off of the Caribbean coast there, though. So there we go. So I get over into a little breeze alley. That's never good for sound.
Well, it actually came in pretty good, I thought. So I appreciate you coming in and being on. And we want to thank all of you that are listening, wherever you may be listening to today's show here on Monday. We wish you a big, happy work week. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, alongside Jim Coyle. This has been the Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.